Good evening, free enterprise community. Welcome to this Adamant Cup bracket round of 16, match number 3 between Galeswift and Simbu. The winner of tonight's race will go on to face Kyrios in a round of 8. The loser will unfortunately be out of the tournament, having run a very, very, very good run to get here no matter what. I am Ed. Joining me on the restream today, behind the scenes on the actual restream itself, is Rum. On the tracking is Night Dew, and on commentary with me today is Reckless Charlie. How are you doing today, Charlie?
So far, so good. Happy to be here. Happy to take part in the evening festivities. We have two very strong runners, and as you can see, this is game 3, and both of these runners have each run two very solid races. Both were very close. Looking forward to see how things shake out this time around.
Definitely. And as we look at these objectives here, this is a very, very interesting set of objectives we have here. It's kind of the hook special, all things considered. We have that launch the Falcon from going down that upper Babel hook route. We have both tail turn-ins over at the Adamant Cave, meaning we have a guaranteed Adamant armor in this seed no matter what. And on the whole, we don't have a lot elsewhere on the map. This could be a very quick race, or it could be a very long one if those key items end up buried way at the back of this entire seed.
Yeah, absolutely. With the one required moon spot being at the top of the moon, there is a chance that we don't have to do too much in the LST itself, and we could, depending on how the distribution shakes out, we could potentially be in for a quick one. But who knows? This is why we play the game.
Absolutely. So many of these races I've seen in this tournament have come down to that hook route, or not that hook route, that moon choice, regardless. Do you dive the lunar subterrane? Do you stay down on the blue planet no matter what? This particular set of objectives is probably telling me our runners are going to want to stay away from doing that full subterrane dive until later in the seed, but if one of our runners decides to go for it and it pays off, that could win them the race, and that might just be enough to squeak them into the round of 8.
Yep, very true. I mean, there's definitely room there for a play to be made by one or both of the runners.
Definitely. Another thing worth noting too, we have basically all above ground objectives. None of the underground is strictly required today. Aside from turning in that Legend Sword and that Adamant, the other two objectives we have, complete Cave Magnus, means Twin Heart, and liberate Barren Castle, both are fairly easy. If there's a free boss in that Cave Bahamut as well, then we're going to have a seed in which a lot of power is not required to beat it, and that could lead to some interesting things when it comes time for this Aromas fight later on.
Indeed, yeah, it'll be a good choice to see, or a good time to see exactly what grinds our runners choose to take to get the requisite levels that are needed to defeat Cerebus.
Definitely, and I think, no one better to have on the hook route than, of course, you, who's been rolling all those wonderful Falcon % asyncs and like that lately. What do you sort of look for when you're thinking, all right, I need to dive this hook route? It's probably the most important thing I have going for me early game. Oh, there's that hook already.
Hey, what a nice solid start. With Rydia especially, I'm a definite fan of Sylph and Leviathan. Rydia can definitely make a big impact, and or getting Quake on the Kid. Both of those are rather useful. If you can get a white mage, get Blink, that can certainly help with a lot of the more physical bosses, and just some type of anchoring as well. It may have to come from the Rydia, it may come from an Edward or a Porum or some of the base level character, just to make sure that you can anchor properly, and so that the moon spots, most namely the king and queen spot, can't really overrun you.
Well, if you want an Edward as an anchor, there is one in Baron Inn. All you got to do is sit through that wonderful Golbez fight there in order to get it, which I don't think either of our runners are going to be particularly eager to get to at this point in time, or eagle to get to either.
Indeed, I think I could see that being kind of faded until folks go underground and come back up, unless it's absolutely necessary to have that Edward anchor, or maybe there's a spoon laying around.
That certainly is possible. I think one of the interesting things about the objectives we rolled and this starting pair of Palom and Rydia is that Palom and Rydia want levels. They want to be able to get to nuke. They kind of want objectives that lead you into those high experience places. You get a full set of moon altars required and a Palom and a Rydia, and you're like, all right, I'm getting double nuke. We're doing reflect strats 100%. But where we might not be getting to a lot of those spots in the seed, there is a question of how much value they hold when you know that you'll have to actually grind for all of that experience.
It's so true. It does require, while there is not as much of an actual gil cost for equipment, there is a time cost that's involved with getting these mages fully online. Interesting to see too, kind of the loot divergence between the runners here at the start. Saw that Simbu picked up what looked to be a big bomb and maybe another J item out of Damsian Basement, and Galeswift is committing to kind of the full loot of Eblin.
Yeah, according to Night Door Tracker, we have 2 big bombs that came from that Damsian Basement, as well as a grimoire out of the left Eblin Castle Tower. Always great to have these J items to get you through those early checks, no matter what. And it looks like Simbu is going to be the first to commit to an actual sort of check and see who the character is up here on Mount Hobbs.
Yeah, there's not too much you're terribly unhappy to see. Rosa absolutely is someone you'd like to add to your party, but which one is it? It's just a hag. Okay.
That's a good one, because if your 2 choices for your third party member are dealing with Alt Gauntlet on top of Mount Hobbs and Golbez at Baron Inn, you're not having a very good day. So definitely both of our runners are going to be very happy that this is the Water Hag and not that Gauntlet.
Indeed, and we were talking a bit ago about things that can help kind of smooth a potential rough hook route out. Having a decent Archer Rosa can certainly provide some of that early power.
Definitely. I think the big question to me too is whether or not either of our runners want to try taking that Edward anyways, knowing that Golbez, while it will knock over one character, probably won't be that much of a threat in that first spot either way, as long as he doesn't get too many spells off, because I believe that spot does have reasonably high for the overworld spell power. Because when you only have 2 characters, it's just not as threatening as when you're trying to play roulette and decide which 2 are going to stay up.
Very true. It's a lot less setup involved when you have less bodies that you have to maneuver around.
I will say, I don't feel like Galeswift's looting has paid off quite as well as he might have hoped. Did get that grimoire. I believe we saw a Siren and a Gungnir as well, but not a lot much else that's interesting. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and just check this hook character, get that free third character into the party before going anywhere else.
I do like the play. I mean, you want to see what's here. Maybe there is a Tella. Maybe there's an Edge, or Edge or Yang. I'm becoming more and more of a fan of Yang for this particular flag set, just because if you get him early enough, you can pile on levels, pile on HP, use the claws to exploit all of the elemental weaknesses. And just be able to push through a lot of checks, at least kind of towards the mid game, based off of a Berserk Yang alone.
Definitely, and another thing worth noting too, you have that Rydia in your party. I believe there's 2 different chances for, or 2 different tier 5 items usually show up in this Cave Eblin shop, which means 2 chances at getting that Leviathan summon. That will make her incredibly strong early on, as long as you just get her a few levels for the MP for it. That can carry you through a hook route on its own. We do see the Yang here. It's an okay prize.
Indeed, and the Dr. Luge at the Ruby spot, not too bad. It's still a little bit of a slog of a fight, but it shouldn't pose significant trouble. There's still the lightning elemental weakness that can be kind of exploited there.
Oh yeah, no, you're 100% looking for a Thunderclaw right now if you're either of these runners. You get that Thunderclaw, slap it on Yang, and get him through that hook route, through that Dr. Luge spot. That is a pretty good setup regardless. There is still not quite a guarantee that they'll have to go through it now, but it is a lot more likely than not that they'll have this hook route be their way underground.
Most likely so, but I mean, there's still a couple of checks to be made. So, I mean, I feel like we'll likely still see our runners at least make a couple of stops to try to squeeze out the magma key and maybe be able to fade this hook route until later. It does look like Galeswift did manage to find a dancing dagger, which will help out with some of the early checks as well. And Simbu just picked that up as well. So both of the runners will be able to leverage that to get through kind of the first couple of checks pretty easily.
Definitely, and once they get through that, they know they'll have access to easy levels too, because there are sirens available here in this Cave Eblin shop, alongside life potions and tents as well. So we're good on camping supplies, we're good on life potions to get through. We've got plenty of eggs to scramble. As long as we can get underground, we're pretty well set now at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be interesting to see where the runners kind of decide to go from here. The kind of the divergence that happens and kind of how the runners kind of reconverge and retread paths is always fun to watch, and it's interesting. Kind of brings up interesting talking points and debates about the order of operations, if you will.
I think, to me, the sort of driving question behind both bracket and group stage flags in this tournament, as we see just a light sword from Bedward, not anything particularly useful to us right now, is the question of how long do you spend setting up for the rest of the seed? I think when you look at objectives like this, where you've got 3 of those 6 terminal key items hard required, you might be thinking this is going to go sort of an kind of middling length in some ways, because those are more likely to be towards the end than towards the beginning. And so in that way, it kind of creates the situation of, I'm wondering when our runners sort of start hitting the gas, so to speak. And I think that's going to be the big defining factor of at least the first part of the seed.
Indeed, and two, once the runners actually get underground, are sirens for sale? And how many sirens, if they are for sale, how many sirens do you buy? Do you pick up a handful to get some base levels? Maybe start looking at tier 3 elemental spells, or do you just go ahead and buy the 25 to 30 that you would need to get all of your casters up to Nuke and Holy?
I think at the start you get enough sirens to get your Palom to Quake. I'm not entirely convinced that we keep this Rydia super long term beyond, I mean, it's going to depend on what we find in terms of key items too. If it looks like the seed's not going to go very long, I might be tempted to say pitch Rydia to the curb, and if you find some good gear along the way, run a hybrid strat instead. It might be a bit faster than grinding all the way to Nuke. So it's at this point in time, I would take, enough to just get the Quake on Palom and then decide where I want to go from there.
Very true. And it looks like we have Baron Guards at Antlion. First check of Antlion for the night. Shouldn't be too difficult, especially with the J Adam being thrown. It's just a nice quick pit stop. We'll see kind of what our next check gives us.
Well, I think that's a pretty good start, at least, on some of the experience here. We do see Sylph for sale over here on Simbu's side in Troya Pub. I don't know if we noted that. I don't believe Galeswift actually looked in that shop or not, but if you want to get Rydia online and sort of use her to heal your way through, just have Archer Rosa just push you through everything else. That's a pretty good pickup, but it is a bit expensive, and it looks like Simbu's not going to be tempted. Meanwhile, Galeswift just finding a Stardust the item, so not kind of buy one, get one free.
Yeah, you invest a J item to get some time to get a little bit of experience and get your J item back. I mean, there are worse things, I suppose.
It's like in Super Mario RPG when you throw the rock candy and you get the freebie. It's just, that is what just happened more than anything else. The next roll of dice is going to be this Mount Hob summon for Rydia.
Well, there's the Sylph we were talking about, getting to save the 30k gil, which is quite a huge investment on this flag set.
Yeah, definitely. I think as far as summons you can get at the start of Mount Hob, Sylph is up there as kind of one of the big ones that you can get. With that Sylph glitch that we have available to our runners here, as soon as Rydia has 25 MP to spare, once she's not in that middle slot, she can cast it entirely for free. It heals the whole party and does a decent chunk of damage. Pretty good spell. The only downside, its animation is a little bit slow, but that's fine because those Sylphs are just so darn adorable as they're needling their way over to steal all your health.
Oh yeah, it's super cute, nice sound effect that people love, people may not love, but very effective, and will absolutely carry to the middle game. It kind of falls off after a while, doesn't quite do the damage that you need, but if it's one of the things we were talking about earlier, it can definitely help with getting your hook route if you really need to.
Yeah, especially where we have that Luge as well, who can do a decent amount of AoE damage to a party. Having that full party heal that you can just pop back on just through Rydia doing damage is going to be quite helpful later on down the line.
Agreed. Looks like Galeswift is picking up the Rosa now, so we're kind of reconverging a bit. It seems Simbu on his way up to full defense. Looked like there, if I remember correctly, I think was that Silvera that had mute knives for sale, or was that I think that was Simbu that stopped there briefly. It's another kind of major item that's defining now, only really useful kind of as a caster stat stick at this point, but who knows, maybe if an edge shows up, even a cane and a pinch, it's one of the items that seems to be kind of defining the flag set a bit as just a cheap way to power through mages, a cheap way to get some stats, and just overall such utility from it.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things I've noticed throughout this tournament too, is that, you have adamant armors available. That's why it's the Adamant Cup. And then suddenly the thing that's deciding races feels like mute knives, which is a little bit of a strange flex for things to take, but it's really showing how our runners have gotten better over time at really utilizing the sort of weakness exploiting gear, as we do find Dark Imps here at Fabul, another free boss, another nice easy run for both of our runners here.
This kind of bodes for interesting things later on. Is with these 3 freebies out of the pool, that's less free things that could that could be blocking our path when we get down to the later stages of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Although I will say that having Dark Imps out of the pool can be nice when you're not going to run into them at an inconvenient location. Dark Imps are one of those kind of free with quotation marks bosses that if you just run into them at the wrong spot, they just punch everyone down and knock you over in half a second flat. So it's kind of good in a way to have them out of the pool and know they're not going to be lurking at, say, that King, Queen, Evelyn spot where they might kind of knock you over before you have a chance to respond.
Oh. Amen. I know I myself have had troubles in that spot. I know it's impacted some races here and there as well. So it is good in a way to see that out. Plus, it's a decent experience spot to start to kind of get people online.
Definitely. But speaking of things that aren't a great spot, we're 15 minutes in. We have seen 3 key item checks already, and we still only have the starting hook. And that has got to be not the best feeling for our runners, knowing that they're not going to have anything else to do before going down that hook route. And then that underground is going to open up to them. This might be in for a bit of a linear seed here. The only things left available are Mount Ordeals, which Galeswift is going to right now, and Golbez at Baronin.
Yeah, and then maybe if we from there we could potentially even see an Earth Crystal or the Earth Crystal or a Twin Harp before having to dive the hook route. Outside of that, you're just, at this point, I think you're kind of hoping for a Magma Key to dive down, get some eggs going, get some XP up, get Quake on the kid, and really start doing some underground checks, and then maybe come back up and look at handling the Golbez, handling the other checks a little later.
Definitely. But if this seed is determined to funnel you both down the same route, there's kind of only the only way it can go, sort of I know it's going to sound a little bit silly, but when you're both running the same race, the person who runs it faster is going to be the one who wins. And in some ways, that might feel better for our runners too, if they're confident that they can beat their opponent in a straight up foot race. If they're not, they might be looking for something with a bit more divergence later. We'll have to see how things go, probably when we get underground at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think both of these runners have shown to one another that they can win a foot race if they necessarily have to. And it could come down to one runner making a specific fade, a specific fade or two, one runner diving the moon earlier than the other to try to squeeze out some additional value, to try to route in things a little bit better on the underground side of things. Who kind of knows where things pan out, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Definitely. We are finding D-Lunars here at this first spot. We're seeing a pretty good example of the power of those J items. Galeswift taking a sort of longer approach, using Sylph, using power to avoid the virus counters with Yang. And Simbu just throwing one big bomb and then firing an arrow at the other one, and has basically caught up that little bit behind that he was going into that fight.
Yeah, it looked like Simbu had kind of taken a little bit of a different route, did a little bit more shopping, kind of preparing leading into it. So now with that play, he's kind of caught up just a touch. So now we're more or less neck and neck at this point.
Definitely, especially with Simbu running across and not bothering to save at all, going into this, very confident going into the second spot here. They basically entered this fight at the same time. I think Galeswift is doing a little bit more damage with his party at the moment on the whole than Simbu is. It is through it first, but there's not much of a difference there.
And this particular boss is a boss that, with all the nasty things that you can see on the back end of an Ordeals, Elements is definitely one of the nicer ones to run across here. We can see that Galeswift was able to get enough damage in on the front end to kind of skip the back half of it, whereas Simbu used a lightning J item to kind of blow through the lightning weakness on the kind of the third portion of Elements.
Definitely, I'll be interested in seeing if Simbu is going to run straight into the Crystal Room, or if he's going to go back and save. He's going to continue being aggressive and again make up that time off of saving. That's something we've seen a lot over the past week or so of this tournament. It's kind of turned into the how much are you willing to risk by running through and not saving at this point in time. It's definitely saving Simbu a good deal, and he hasn't been punished for it, but if there's a wyvern or something like that along the way, then that's a problem. But hey, how about a charm rod? That's what you want, right?
Yeah, we're not looking for key items here. We're looking for equipment. The Dark Elf, Dark Elf is another boss that you wouldn't mind seeing later, just because you can use stop or weak to make kind of the second half of this dragon form a lot easier. But seeing it in kind of the lower hit point spots is a little bit of a bummer.
Definitely. I mean, it's just going to be basically 2 hits and it's over regardless. Galeswift already through. Simbu missing there with Iridia, should be very shortly behind, taking a few extra turns to get through it, but on the whole, through it quite easily. Here's the question. Do you want a hook route or do you want a Golbez? Because those are your 2 choices at this point.
It's tough to say. I mean, I would be tempted to go ahead and take a crack at the Golbez at least, because at least the Edward can kind of be an anchor. I probably would potentially look at doing some traps in Eblin beyond that to kind of get a couple additional levels, maybe even alone enough to kind of get through to Quake, get through to Blink on Rosa. But then again, I tend to play on the safer side of things, naming scheme aside. There's a good bit of choices where we are right now with our runners.
Definitely, I think that is just kind of being the real theme here and what you want to do, safety versus just risk. I would be quite tempted to dive that hook route, but I also don't ever run races that have as much on the line as this one does, where it's, both of our runners sort of fighting for their tournament lives, so to speak, in this particular case. So I can't really say what I would do under this kind of pressure to perform. I think It's going to come down to what our runners are more comfortable with, personally, because I think when you're in this kind of situation, you got to kind of go with what you're good at, because you've been good enough to get this far. You got to believe that's good enough to get you further.
Very true. Similarly, I wouldn't know exactly what I would be doing until I'm actually in the situation, and then just having to kind of think about it on the fly. So, looks like Galeswift is taking the Golbez here. Even though it is Golbez and it is one of the bosses that can block the logical access underground, we do have a hook, so this still could be Magma Key. We'll find out kind of what's beyond this as well to see kind of what challenges await.
Imagine how that would be, though. You have the starting hook, and the only other key item available to you on the overworld is the Magma Key hiding behind the Golbez at Baron Inn. That's got to be the worst feeling if that's the case.
Yeah, it's rando gonna rando sometimes.
So Galeswift through the cutscene part with Palom and Rydia alive. That's kind of okay. You probably want someone with a bit more health to get through there. Gonna get the Star Veil off on Rydia, which should mean that this will be fine. Palom will unfortunately go down to the virus, but that should be the fight pretty much over with once we just give Golbez a quick little tap here. Oh, there goes Young again.
Yeah, it looks like Galeswift is just trying to make sure that he's got another character or two up to face the second half. Because the second half there's around 4,000 health. Physical attack is rather stout, and just want to make sure that you can at least manage that a little bit. Now on Simbu's side, looks Simbu with the tiara should be a little bit better equipped to handle that. If it came down to that same scenario, looks like both runners are opting to take this Golbez on, and it looks like we have Ruby in our second half, which shouldn't be too bad, all things considering.
The Ruby should be fine. The Glare will probably still kill if it hits, but having access to Sylph to sort of heal your party back up as you throw life pots with your other two members, you should be pretty much fine with that. One thing I want to note over on Simbu's side is that you may have noticed, if you're unfamiliar with status priority, that all of Simbu's party members are pigs. There's a concept in the Final Fantasy IV game as programmed called status priority. If you have a status effect that's a higher priority than the one that the enemy is attempting to inflict on you, you cannot be inflicted with it. In this case, avoiding the paralysis from Golbez there to sort of get through that fight a bit smoother and have 3 up instead of 2, or instead of 1 like Galeswift had.
And it looks like the Glare will still take members out as Rydia unfortunately caught the Glare here, but this spot, thankfully, at least in this case, is not worth any experience, so it's just a matter of getting the damage out to get through it.
Definitely. It's also a matter of just, living through this fight. It's not the most threatening fight in the world, but it's not a completely free fight either. In this case, you really got to get that healing going through Sylph to heal up after those Fire 2s, but even then, punches are just going to knock over Palom one shot. But Galeswift already through, and we'll see if this is going to be an actual key item.
All right, so it's another character check. 2 more bosses, a little bit more experience. I don't know. What do you think you would do with this spot? Do you think you would dive Baron here or dive Baron shortly to take another crack at a potential Magma Key?
Oh yeah, right now it's an objective too, so I would take it right away, get that already done off the board. But I'm kind of always along the lines of the school of thought of put off a hook route for as long as possible. It might be a bit more tempting in this particular setup where it is an objective to just go at some point in time, but I think the time to go for it would have been instead of the Golbez as opposed to after the Golbez.
It makes perfect sense. You have to kind of go with your plays. If you make the play for tackling kind of the harder check, you kind of feel incentivized to follow up on it. Looks like the Baron weapon and armor shops too were pretty well set up for our party. Looks like there was a Thunderclaws and Heroine robes, both of which will help out immensely with the current party comp.
Definitely, and samurai arrows as well. If we find a good bow, we're going to be doing decent damage with it regardless. I think Rose has currently got an archer bow on at the moment, which is not the best, but it'll do for right now. On the whole, we're in pretty good shape to get through this barren castle here. Here's the big question is, I don't remember who gave us the key item at the start.
Yeah, I missed it as well, unfortunately. But we will find out here here in a few seconds. So, and two, it will be interesting to see because we've talked a bit about saving and potential spots where our friend Wyvern, is this even? Our friend Wyvern kind of shows up in some rude spots. I mean, Wyvern on the Barren Throne is a little bit of a tricky spot because it is a little bit faster. So you'll be a lot of the time you'll see runners kind of be cautious and lower battle speed, or you're even back out and save to try to make sure that you can get past it, because otherwise you're losing a couple of minutes to having to come back through, walk all the way back through, and redo both fights.
Yeah, I think if you run into a Wyvern on the Barren Throne and you haven't saved midway through, the big question is, do you walk back through now, or do you just come back later when you might have a little bit better of a handle on your agility situation than we have right now? We don't have a bad agility situation per se on either side, but we don't really have an ideal one like we might have later on in the seed. So that might come into play as well. Either way, this Biken is not a threat, so as long as we can get through it, it's not going to take that long. Simbu's already through it.
Unfortunately, Galeswift got the respawn on the arms, so it will take slightly more time to get through, but overall shouldn't be too bad. It's around a little over 4,000 health, if my memory serves me correctly, overall for the spot. Some of that kind of being split off to the arms, so it shouldn't be too much trouble. Yeah, it looks like he's getting through now too.
Definitely. Simbu gonna go ahead and check these treasure chests over here, only really finding the poison claw, which is not as impressive as it might seem in some ways. We'll see what's on this throne, because like you said, if this is a Wyvern, this became a lot more complicated, but it is good king, evil wall instead.
Not quite as threatening. It is a little bit fast, but it's not extremely punchy. So we should, by all accounts, be okay to put. Our runners should both be okay to kind of manage this.
Definitely, with how much power or how much it's punching for here, from what I'm seeing over on both sides, with Sylph alone, Sylph will take care of all the healing for it. You'll be at full health basically constantly. You just got to knock it over. This is one of the better things we could have found here, because that means he's not going to be blocking something worse later on.
So true. Yeah, there are plenty of moon spots where a wall could be a bit of a test, but thankfully we don't have to worry about that today. At least as far for our runners.
Definitely not. And the big question to me now is, when we get through this, it's two questions. The first one is, what is the key item, and does it keep us wanting to check things up here? Is it that heart or that earth crystal? And secondly, do you peek what's on the throne, knowing that if it is not something easy, you probably do not have a way through it right now?
I could kind of see it both ways. I didn't catch if either runners picked up an hourglass. Then again, really the only hourglass we'll fight left is Kaipo guards at this point. There's not really too much the runners will be able to take out. And without it being an objective, I can kind of see them passing on it for now. But still, that check could very easily linger. It's something I know personally I have skipped over, just thinking, I'll get to this later, and it turns out I never get to it. So let's kind of see where we go from here.
Well, Duplicate Palom was not going to have a place in this party, I don't think, unless you were tempted to get rid of that Rydia and just have two Quake kids, which in some ways could be tempting, but not so much with that Sylph. Both of our runners going to go ahead and just say goodbye to Duke Palom at this point in time. Simbu already down to the old Baron trash can, finding a package. I don't think you check that.
Yeah, there's not really much I think you take, because it is multiple minutes to check it, and it looks like actually Simbu's going in to dive to see what's down in the basement. Actually, both runners.
I mean, you might as well. If you can get through this fight, it's another thing that could possibly be that magma key. It's another way through. It's a free Bacchus wine on the way. So, if worst comes to worst, you can say you got through this Baron Castle throne and all you got was this one bottle of wine. And that's Sparkle. That's horrifying.
Oh, there's a lot that, Ogopogo here is quite scary. Not in terms of how hard it punches, just that it is a very fast spot. So overall, it'll be tough to do.
The Nope Rope living up to his name in every shape and form possible. Neither runner going to take that fight. It does look, however, like Galeswift is going to go and maybe do those trap chests, whereas Simbu is actually checking this package, and is he going to sit through it? Not for a cane. Might have been looking for an edge there.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see Edge kind of being maybe the one character that you'd sit through for, just based off the power alone that he kind of interjects. While he is kind of expensive to equip, you do get a lot of payout for it.
Yeah, about the only thing that I feel really would be compelling me to take that cane in any way, shape, or form is the fact that I believe both our runners already have a Gungnir somewhere. But on the whole, Gungnir is not even impressive enough to be worth taking right now when you're probably going for reflect strats when you get to Zeromus anyways, or something similar. Kane's not really adding much to that.
Yeah, I mean, Kane can provide some insurance for Valvalis at a rough spot, which, I mean, still having that possibility of having the Kane kind of there, if you absolutely have to get through a Val, certainly it's nice, although thankfully, if, say, Val's at Cave Bahamut is the one spot on the moon. Forgive me if my memory's a little bit incorrect on this. The one spot on the moon where there's less magic evades. So any nukers that we have at that point, any magic users should still be able to kind of blow through that spot.
I'm trying to remember. I think that one might not be nukable. I think it might be the Mirasame altar that's nukable now that I think about it. But I'm not 100% sure. Don't take my word for that either. There definitely are spots on the moon where you can just nuke a Val that we would hope to see her as opposed to one of the other ones, but not that much interesting. Galeswift only getting a Moon Veil for that first trap chest, not the hit he's looking for. Simbu is going to go ahead and dive the hook route.
Yeah, I mean, Moon Veil will certainly be nice if you need to try to take out, say, a punchy boss on one of the Feymarch spots, or a moon spot, even if it's just solely physical damage that you're having to run up against. It can be helpful to throw a Moon Veil and use a Bacchus on Yang and just kind of brute force your way through it. And it is another Star Veil in a pinch that just lasts a little bit longer if you really need it. So there could definitely be worse things, but it's certainly not what our runners were hoping for.
Definitely. One thing worth noting, we were talking about Val, that Moon Veil can be really good Val insurance later on down the line as well. If you're in a spot where you can physically attack, like you said, just Bacchus up the Yang or Berserk him normally before I guess you can't Berserk him before he throws the Moon Veil. That would not work. But that could be something that gets you through that spot. So we do have ways around it that Simbu won't have access to if it happens to be in a bad location, but Simbu looking like he's going to be opening chests on the way up, maybe looking for that Mad Ogre's chest here.
So it looks like Galeswift making good use of Medusa arrows as well, kind of throwing out a stop on an ogre and then using Medusa arrows to turn it into stone. So it looks like the ogres themselves are a bit punchy, as you can see. The fight's kind of starting to unravel a little bit, but hopefully things kind of turn around. It is a little bit close, but it's still doable from this point.
Definitely. I think realistically, Galeswift has a much higher chance of this trap chest play paying off than Simbu's one trap chest. I know that this one in Upper Battle is not weighted very highly for good loot, but I don't know. Galeswift is spending a lot of time in these checks, and if they don't pay off, that's going to be a big problem for him later.
Yeah, especially with sirens available. Thanks, chat, for making mention of that. With sirens kind of easily available, the experience, the need for the experience, it'll be helpful to get through the hook route, sure, but you can make that up on the back end once you've actually gotten through the hook route.
Well, there's an Avenger if Galeswift wants to go sit through a package for a Kane.
That is very tempting. I don't know if Galeswift has checked it yet, but that's still distinctly possible at this point.
I mean, I'm agreeing with chat here. I would take package Kane with an Avenger because that's probably going to push you through the hook route. But I think Galeswift is probably of the opinion in this case that the likelihood of that package paying off with exactly a character that's going to be good for him to get through here is quite low, and just going to go without it. Can't blame him for that choice, and that one will just have to be a theoretical thing later on.
Indeed, it looks like Simbu does have a good handle on this ogre fight, getting some stops out and using the Archer Rosa to kind of push through. So we'll kind of see where this goes, and that should be pretty close to the experience that's needed to get to Quake, especially factoring in life glitches.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be interested to see how close he gets, if not all the way. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets all the way, honestly. But on some level, there's a question of how much Quake matters, relatively speaking, in some ways for getting through this hook route. Obviously, Quake is Quake and always going to be good, but at the same time, it's not like we've got a massively difficult boss waiting for us up here. It's just Dr. Dialogue. He can be annoying, but he's not really a giant threat. So it'll be interesting to see how that pays off.
Indeed, the HP is split kind of multiple ways, and Quake will help with the first part a good bit. And sure, it does solid damage. It'll definitely help kind of push through a little bit faster, but there's still kind of a big investment involved. A decent amount of time kind of involved in even just sitting through and waiting for Mr. Monologue to kind of say what he has to say and get on with it.
And while you're waiting for Mr. Monologue, you want to keep considering that Kane that now Galeswift has an Avenger for and Simbu has a Dragoon Spear for?
That would be very tempting. I think at this point, since you're already here, you push through the hook route. But if I was in Simbu's shoes, I definitely would be forefront of my mind, or even in Galeswift's shoes too. Like Zoe pointed out in chat, Avenger Kane does kind of speed up fights quite a bit. We see D-Mist here, which is kind of a rude spot for this boss.
That is free with the Moonveil that Galeswift picked up, and deeply unpleasant without. That D-Mist is going to punch quite hard. I don't know if Rosa has Blink yet on Galeswift's side. That would help quite a bit. On Simbu's side, I know he doesn't have the Moonveil that's going to make this a lot easier on Galeswift, so that could play into it as well. But on the whole, I think it's a really good use of Moonveil. That's going to really lower the punchiness of this spot when it lands on that Paladin, who's probably going to be your main damage healer regardless. And that's just really good use of what he has available to him.
Agreed. So often, speaking from personal experience especially, that you'll end a seed with J items in your inventory, and you can't carry them over. You might as well use them.
Yeah, when you're kind of sitting at the end of the seed and you're like, wow, Moonveils are great. Why didn't I use this at any point in time when it would have been useful? The problem is that Galeswift is having a hard time hitting the D-Mist. The Quake's going off while D-Mist is sort of in its invulnerable form, gonna bluff up in between, but might be a little bit off cycle right now. There's the first swing, there's the second swing. I don't think we're getting a Quake off this cycle.
Yeah, with one actor, it's moving very, very quickly, so I think maybe we'll have to look at getting set up to get a virus cast off as soon as kind of the next part of the script comes up.
Definitely, and that looks like it's exactly what Galeswift is going to do. Has the virus queued up. We'll see how much damage that does. Meanwhile, over on Simbu's side, having a little bit of a rough time stabilizing, but sort of starting to pull it back around. That Sylph going to whiff against the Mist Phase here. Going to try and get some healing up, but on the whole, having Blink on Rosa would have been huge for this fight.
Oh, indeed. It's kind of the divergence and kind of the impact is absolutely noticeable.
Definitely. I think it's one of those examples of, sometimes those extra levels can just be that extra bit of safety that you need to get through, and that could be really, really important there. But Galeswift already through. Simbu, I don't think is going to be that far behind. Well, he's had a little bit of a rough time. Yep, he's through as well.
Indeed. So while Galeswift did manage to get through on the first try, Simbu's attempt was a little bit faster, so they were more or less at parity. I think Galeswift taking the kind of the safety save, understandably so. You don't want to have to go through that fight again, and same with Simbu. Nothing is worse than having to go through a rough king and queen spot multiple times, especially if you can help it, just based off hubris alone.
Definitely. We've kind of been playing, or at least I've been kind of playing down this Dr. Luge a little bit. He can be a threat in some ways, but I think both of our runners are pretty well set up for this. We have Thunderclaws for this Yang. He should basically shred both sides of this particular fight. Got Quake on Palom to knock over this phase twice as quick. And yeah, this should be pretty easy to get through on the whole.
Yeah, shouldn't be too bad. Both runners kind of getting in close at the same time, so should be on pace. It'll be nice to see kind of where the runners go after this point.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, outside of the question of whether or not you take that Golbez fight, which I think most runners probably are going to take that fight, this seed has not allowed you to make decisions in a way outside of just looting. And once we get underground, we're going to have that first real decision. We'll know who's at the top of tower. We'll know if we can go up there and grab that quickly. We'll be able to go down, check the Fey March. Do you just go check the freebies and hope that you finally see a fourth key item 45 minutes into this seed? There's a lot of possibilities. This is where it's going to start opening up, and that's what's going to be really important going forward.
Indeed, and kind of conventional wisdom of if you can get through a hook route, then you should be able to push through a dwarf castle as well. So there's that play to be made. So it's there's some, like you said, there is a little bit of an illusion of choice, but not really. There's a couple of options out there, but maybe we'll see if maybe that maybe the dwarf castle or the package kind of looms large because of the cane equipment that we've seen.
I think it's more likely to loom large in Simbu's case, where he's checked the package and knows that Kane is there. Whereas Galeswift, I feel like Galeswift not bothering to just even look at that package has already said, I don't care. I'm not going back to that package. I'm not sitting through that cutscene for any character at this point in time. There's nothing you can say that will make me go for it. And so he's probably just going to keep staying the course. He might be more tempted to go to Dwarf Castle with that Avenger and see if he can't hit that cane that he doesn't know is up there.
Indeed. So it looks like on Galeswift's side, Galeswift's Yang ate the Explode from Balneb Z, so down to 2 characters, trying to revive to kind of bring things back in line. We'll don't know exactly how this is going to pan out, but Sylph should absolutely help kind of start to bring parity back.
Definitely. This fight, the Rydia goes down before the Sylph goes off. That is not very good for Galeswift here. Down to 2 characters here, still trying to get Rosa up, still in recovery mode, should be fine, but having a little bit of a rough time. Simbu, meanwhile, getting his start on the fight here, having that poison go off, and we'll see if his start gets a little bit different there, as he's looking to bluff up that Palom.
Looks like I imagine the Chocobo's just an unfortunate miss menu, and looks like Galeswift is taking the reset, going to just try to come back at this again. I don't blame him at all. It was a bit of a kind of a rough transition into that phase, but looking to kind of get a little better prepared for the next go around.
Definitely. I know he's got this. It's just, sometimes things like that happen. You just got to brush yourself off and get going again. Now knows sort of things that went wrong in that fight that he can sort of prepare around a little bit more before going into. Gonna go ahead and lower the battle speed to 3. Gonna pop that ninja hat onto Rosa, get her going a little bit faster, and we'll see if that helps a little bit. Simbu looking pretty stable over on his end, though. Palom is down, but everyone else looking pretty healthy.
Indeed, it's kind of one of the important things with the big races like this. Just to try your best to keep kind of a level head. And it can be kind of tough, especially with tough spots like this. That just to try to maintain an even keel. It looks like Galeswift is kind of starting to kind of recover and kind of get moving again.
Definitely, and while we're sort of in the stable loop on Simbu's side, and the part of the fight we've already seen over on Galeswift's side, I do want to give a quick shout out to both of our runners putting on a wonderful show for us today. Make sure you give both of them a follow. They're both not only excellent runners, but also excellent people, and definitely deserve all the love they can get.
Indeed, both of these runners are and demonstrated by the fact that they're both kind of here at this stage of the tournament, are both just very great runners, both very knowledgeable about the game, and they're just a blast to watch overall.
Definitely, and speaking of blast, Simbu is blasted through that Dr. Luge fight, 48-minute hook route here, and heading on down into this spot. We'll see who's top tower. Antlion at top of tower. That's not always the most fun thing to see there.
Antlion seems a little bit lost. It should normally be on the moon, right?
In some ways, lore-wise, I think, the Tower of Babel's supposed to, call the giant down from the moon, so it's, the closest to the moon you can get without being on the moon, in my opinion, outside of, sitting on the whale, which just isn't a boss spot, so that does work a little bit.
Looks like Simbu's going to do a little bit of shopping first to kind of check and see what Adams, what equipment's available, and then we'll kind of see. It looks like also too Galeswift's just about through this portion of the fight to kind of go into the second phase.
Well, there's Bacchus wine on Simbu's side. That is pretty interesting. I'm not going to buy very many of them. First of all, it doesn't really have the raw funds, and secondly, it's not like it's going to be a very berserk heavy seed with only a Yang currently punching, so might as well just take it easy, see what is down at the Fey March next, but that's one of those good things to have in your pocket.
Especially in a spot like Tomra, where you'll be coming back down here anyway at some point to forge, so you can always reload. It's just a short little trip over to reload if you need some more later.
Definitely. I'm interested in seeing if there is a key item down here in this box, which I feel is more important of a question than what is the key item down here at this point in time with how things have been going. Anything that gets us progress would be nice. That's a black shirt. I don't know what I expected.
Well, Harumph has rolled quite the doozy tonight.
So we're what? 6 key item checks in at this point in time, and we found a total of a package and a Baron key.
It's impressive. It is that all the more likely that Moon is going to have some type of value.
I think that's kind of the way I like some of these races too. You have these objectives that don't make you want to go to the moon, but the key item density's there and you haven't found anything yet. How tempting is that to you? I know Galeswift unfortunately did lose a bit of time to that wipe, is going to be behind going to the underground here, but a gutsy moon play that Simbu doesn't take, or a moon play that Simbu takes that Galeswift doesn't, that doesn't pay off, could still swing this match back into his favor at this point. There's still so much left on the table that we don't know about the seed that while he may be a bit behind right now, I think that's pretty easy to catch up. There's a CPU and a Sparkle. That's not great.
The CPU with this particular flag set, with there not being a back row glitch, it can be a little bit awkward, and especially the Leviathan spot with how many hit points it has. I missed that was it looks like a Blarg at the Queen spot, so not the kindest Feymarch.
Yeah, I think I'm coming back later if I'm these runners, honestly. There's not much incentive to take a Wyvern and a CPU fight that's going to be quite a long fight. You know, like you mentioned, that back row glitch, sort of one of the hallmarks in a way of high-end free enterprise play prior to 4.5 coming out, where we now have the G back row flag, and when that's turned on, you had the back row glitch. It's not turned on anymore. And that change alone just really sends CPU's annoyance factor as a boss kind of through the roof. It's still something you can get through with that Sylph summon pretty easily, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, it's absolutely a time investment that makes perfect sense for the runners to fade that and just come back later when you're a lot more powerful and make just a lot faster work out of it. So it looks like we have hourglasses for sale. There's not too much outside of grinds that you can use hourglasses for, but that does put gold dragons from the moon kind of on the table as a potential grind.
I'm kind of the opinion in these bracket flags that moon dragon grind is real appealing if I'm going to do a lot of shopping. I don't see us doing a lot of shopping in this seed. I see us getting maybe a few more Bacchus wines and calling it a day, maybe popping a few more sirens. But I don't really think that I would be too incentivized to do that versus just grinding up a bit earlier. So in that case, I think probably just one or two hourglasses for the two bosses left that are not immune to it, those Kaipo guards and the sort of back half of dolls, and that's it.
Yep, very true. It looks like Galeswift is through has launched the Falcon, and we have another Sparkle at the first half of Dwarf Castle.
Well, that's either Pale Dim or a Plague, both of which are probably fine. I believe the spot can be a little bit on the punchy side from time to time, but not too much of a worry. Or is it the magic side? I might be misremembering there.
You're right. The punchy. This is a little bit of a punchy spot. With it being a Pale Dim, this will hit kind of hard. It is a little bit on the slower side though, so should be decently manageable, especially with blinks. Sylph is gonna be out of the question just solely based off of the Quake counters that Pale Dim offers, but with the kid having Quake and Virus, should be pretty well poised to push through it.
Definitely, another thing worth noting too, Galeswift looking like he's more interested in just going through the freebies, might not go for Dwarf Castle right away. So this might be a bit of divergence here. Has gone down and already prepped Sheila 1, which usually tells me that either he's very conscious about where he's going to get that healing from and doesn't want to have to heal twice, which you would kind of have to if you're taking a Dwarf Castle in between at any point, or, isn't going to bother, which wouldn't surprise me too much. I feel like when you take that wipe on the hook route, you kind of want a key item and you want it now.
Yeah, there's absolutely the kind of the internal clock that kind of can tick away when you think that, I only have 3 key items at the 50, coming up not too far away from the 1 hour mark in a seed, and you feel like there's a lot more that's still out there.
I think it's kind of an interesting situation too, where we have basically no progress almost an hour in. But neither of our runners probably feel behind from that because they know that progress just does not exist. This is, 404 key items not found, not, I've had a rough time getting through the overworld. So it's kind of hard to say what that does to how you want to play your race. in some ways, it might make our runners a bit more averse to taking any risks, because now would be the time when that risk would potentially make or break you entirely.
Indeed. And it looks like Simbu's through the first half of Dwarf Castle. We'll see what the character is, and see what the next boss is, and get another check done.
That's a Mylon of some variety, and that is that's a Porum, which we're not taking in any circumstance, I don't think. Yep, there she goes. A bit unfortunate. There are seeds where Porum can shine. This is just not one of them, and we've got a nice, easy Mylon and friends to get through now.
Porum will be nice to have at Mysidia in case you need an anchor in your back pocket. But yeah, beyond that, I agree with you. I think it's not a character you're going to pick up at this stage.
Definitely, and as was mentioned as a possibility, Galeswift not going to Dwarf Castle right away is going to head up to Sheila 1, check this freebie instead of anything else. And that is going to be the first real divergence we've had here, because it's the first one that's allowed. We're going to get dueling key item checks here once we get through, of course, the spooky Golbez hand cutscene.
So Sheila 1 with a pass, which, while it's useful, just not immediately useful.
All right, you want something we can light up on the tracker? All right, but you're not getting a key item out of it. That is interesting. Pass with no Darkness Crystal kind of means nothing, but this Dwarf Castle has a pretty high chance of being that Darkness Crystal. That's a Pan. Simbu rewarded quite heavily for not taking that Sheila 1 check.
Agreed. There might be a little bit of a feel bad on Galeswift's side, but I can absolutely see kind of the logic behind, get some freebies in, kind of see where you stand, see what kind of progression that you get from it. It's a perfectly valid play. Because who knows that Sheila 1 could very easily there be, say, a Twin Harp or a Zot that you could tackle fairly easily with this party.
Definitely. I think in some ways, the holding out forever to try and lower your trips to Fabul, while admirable, sometimes is not the best idea. And this is definitely one of the situations where it wasn't the best idea, as long as Dwarf Castle was not exactly what Dwarf Castle ended up being. Simbu about to get this check here as Galeswift is in those eggs right now.
Yeah, this is a solid play, I think, just to get some more levels, potentially get close to Cure 3 on Rosa, which is kind of a decent benchmark too for taking on Fame Arch fights, just to be able to heal a little bit more effectively, a little more efficiently.
Definitely, and one thing worth noting, Simbu picking up the spoon from Sylph Cave. Are you tempted at all by that Edward once you have that spoon in hand? I know that I'm not personally, but I know there are probably some runners who might be thinking about it.
I think without an Adamant armor, I'm probably just not touching spoon. He's just way too much of a glass cannon otherwise. Especially without the back row glitch, you still have to put Edward in the front row, and in the front row, sure, he's going to take a lot less damage, but you're looking at, if you're lucky, he might have 12 to 1500 health going into a Zeromus fight. So it's still very tough to say. I'm not the biggest personal fan of brackets for Spoonward. Group flags, absolutely. But current situation, not so much.
Definitely. We'll see what the Sheila 2 check is here. We're still looking for progression. There are only 3 spots left the Darkness Crystal can be, but it's not there. That's a crystal, but it's a crystal ring. Darkness Crystal is set behind either Keyless Tower, CPU at Leviathan, or Wyvern at Asura.
Yeah, this is quite the seed for sure. This is just a nice, cozy evening seed for a Friday night.
This is like Lord of the Rings extended cut style of seed, where it's like, this is all very interesting, but we probably could have cut some of the time and running time off of this, and it would have been fine. But it just looked like Simbu is going to go ahead and head for this keyless tower now. Also, welcome everyone raiding over from Free Enterprise 2. Glad to have you. Welcome to where the race where we're an hour in, and we found a total of 5 key items. So things going well over here.
Indeed, good, great to see you folks. Please no spoils on the race that you were just watching. A lot of folks, including myself, are anxious to check out VODs, so please be a little bit wary of that. Yeah, well, interesting to see kind of where we go, though. It looks like Galeswift is making up on the dwarf castle, and likely, I imagine, to kind of pick up the pan and go make those 2 checks to kind of make up that piece.
Definitely. And one more thing worth noting, as Kyrios, whoever wins this race's future round of 8 opponent, pointed out in chat, you could go to Ogopogo at that Odin spot too if you're so tempted. So, do you want to deal with Antlion on top of the tower, CPU, Wyvern, or Ogopogo?
Yeah, none of those options are really all that great. I don't know what do you make of it, Anth? What do you think?
I'd go for the keyless tower at this point in time. That CPU is going to take forever. It's just way too long at this point in time. That Wyvern, I kind of wonder how our runners are going to get through that without dumping someone off for an anchor at this point in time, and that kind of feels bad because I kind of feel like this party's kind of good for what we're doing. Other than that, maybe CPU after this, and then go for Wyvern because you have to.
Very true. And looks like we're getting some checks for some traps on Simbu's side. I missed what was in the first of the traps, but interesting play for sure. I think there's always kind of the sneaky chance, and with Yang, these the alerts are basically free.
Definitely. And one thing worth noting over on Galeswift's side has dropped the Rydia in favor of the Porum from Dwarf Castle. That could be a sign that he's more interested in taking on those Feymarch bosses if this doesn't pay off, if he's planning on using her as an anchor through the next part of the seed. I like that play in some ways. It's a risk, but if it pays off, it's going to pay off big, because we know that those 2 Feymarch bosses are at this point in time like a grand total of a 50 but not actually percent chance of being that Darkness Crystal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having kind of that base level Porum, I can see that kind of being the anchor straight away, and it does open up that the Wyvern spot and the Moon spots, and it kind of saves you that potential trip to Mysidia. Or having to hope that whatever on the moon is just another character you don't want.
Definitely. It's just, the more this seed feels like it's going to open up, the more it immediately narrows back down into nothing. We had that overworld where nothing came out of it except a Baron key and a package. We've had this underground where all we've gotten is a pan that leads to only items and a pass. This is not the best case scenario for either runner, because I feel like when you hit the point where this seed is diverged every time and you're not hitting anything, while you may know that all those things are nothing, you gotta be thinking, oh no, what if my opponent did that instead?
Yep, very true. Looks like we're going to see our Antlion fight now, which overall it shouldn't be too bad. It is a decent pile of HP, but with a couple of casters and the power punches and aims, that shouldn't really see too many counters over, if any. And it doesn't. It hits a little bit hard, but not too terrible. So it should be fairly manageable, just slightly long.
Definitely. We do have access to Blink on Rosa, so if you get those blinks up and you're not triggering those counters, then this becomes basically entirely free in a way. However, Simbu says, I'm fine with counters. This Bacchus wine's going on young, and we're just going to punch this Antlion down as quickly as possible, which unfortunately does lead to Palin going down right away.
Just it is a risk that you can take, but certainly if you want to try to get through it as quickly as possible, it is a little bit of a trade-off.
Definitely, and we are seeing Galeswift does have that Porum on the ground, is moving her to the center slot. That is Anchor Porum over on Galeswift's side. If that Wyvern is required down at the bottom of the Feymarch, that is going to be advantage Galeswift right now.
Absolutely, I like the decision. I think it's solid. Looks like, again, like you mentioned, not much of a choice in terms of the path, but I think Galeswift with the party set up and with the agility set up more specifically is a lot better poised to take on that antline sooner rather than later.
Definitely, and another thing about it too, we've seen basically every armor shop so far. We have not found a curse string. You're probably going to need to anchor using a character if you're going to have an anchor period at the end, or you're going to need to fast anchor later. So I think ditching for that anchor sooner right now, where you're going to still be making use of it, is probably better than waiting until later at this point. So while Simbu might get through this fight a little bit faster with that Leviathan damage, it will eventually start paying off on Galeswift's side, and he will make up some of that time that he lost from that wipe at that Dr. Luge spot.
Absolutely, just that kind of the foresight to get ahead of that that potential problem can save a lot of headache later.
Is that a real key item? That's a rat tail, an objective too.
Wow,
it's Christmas.
Hey, keyless tower paying off.
I mean,
he kind of has to at this point.
I was about to say, there's not many other options other than keyless tower paying off at this point in time. Well, that's interesting, because keyless tower paying off, that rat tail can be any number of things at this point in time. Say that leads to the Darkness Crystal. How good do you feel about the fact that you took Keyless Tower instead of trying to, say, force one of those Feymarch fights? That could be something that sort of gives you a bit of a boost of confidence here.
I think so too. I think it's absolutely worth going to check. It is an objective after all. Could spin around and be a pink tail to give you an adamant right away. Could be your Darkness Crystal. Either way, I think it's absolutely worth doing, and it kind of would feel good in either for either runner, just to go ahead and have kind of that what could potentially feel like an inside route.
Definitely, Simbu has already dropped the hovercraft over there. Good amount of foresight doing that, flying before. Might as well drop that over there. Nice little optimization. And we will see what we get out of this rat tail here. That is a Luca key. Hey, you want a rabbit hole in exchange for your rabbit hole?
Indeed. Another fast spot. High magic power there. And something that Galeswift is already set up to kind of tackle. And the walk down is a little over a minute, if I remember correctly. So I think it's that is likely to be our next check, just because of how awkward that Feymarch is.
Absolutely, and that kind of leads to an interesting question for Simbu here. While he's on the overworld, looks like he's going to go ahead back and pick up some more sirens, might be preparing to do a grind before heading down there. Does he go back to Mysidia and pick up an anchor while he's on the overworld, or does he just go back down, grind, and hope he can get through whatever's down there? I think both have some of their own merits, but it's going to be interesting to see which one it's going to pick up here.
I'm of the mindset at this point that you sell the farm, and you pick up enough sirens to get to double nuke, and just kind of blow the seat up from there. Looks like that's what Simbu did. Simbu did get a lot of money out of the chests in the tower, and was able to afford to pick up 25 sirens, which is quite a bit of experience.
Absolutely, and to answer a question from chat real quick, did anyone pick Peak Feymarch? Good King CPU and Queen Wyvern are down there, so not particularly exciting bosses to go face, But it just looks like Simbu is not going to bother going for an anchor at this point in time, just going to head down and check Sealed Cave before doing the grind as well.
Yeah, the fights here, outside of being fast, shouldn't be too bad. I mean, there are a couple of bosses here that you don't really want to see, like say Amaga's sisters. Thankfully, Golbez is already out of the pool. Kinatsu here is a little bit annoying just for the sake of how fast it is and how quick the waves can come out. But overall, it should be fine. Again, provided that this is actually progression, which with how things have been going, we don't quite know yet.
Definitely, and both of our runners going to be in sync here again, heading down this sealed cave. And that's kind of, again, been the story of this race. Both of our runners have been following in each other's footsteps more or less the entire time, outside of that one little bit of divergence that they basically just kind of made up for by immediately doing the same thing the other person did right afterwards. Where does this race start opening up? Does it start opening up at this point?
It's a great question, and we will be finding out rather shortly. Taking the safety save on the way down.
Definitely, and while we're on this walk down the sealed cave is over there. While we're on the way down the sealed cave, I want to give another quick shout out to the behind the scenes team on the restream, Harump, for rolling this seed that technically counts as a seed, and Night 2 on the tracking, which he's not going to have another button to press because there's another zonk.
Yeah, this is that Fey March is in some form required at this point for progression. So it looks like Simbu's gonna go ahead and get the grind going.
I don't know, could be Ogo Pogo at Odin.
See, again, I forget these things.
I think everyone wants to forget the Ogo Pogo down at the Odin spot, personally.
Yeah, so true.
Galeswift about to get the bad news here that this is not a anything you walk out. It's a samurai shield. It's not even a good zonk. It's like, I rarely see worse loot than a samurai shield down at the bottom of sealed caves. So this is quite something here. Does Galeswift go take a grind, or does he head straight down the Fey March? I think it's going to be, no, Fey March time. Galeswift might be taking the lead here.
It's definitely a gamble of sorts, but with the agility set up as it is, he's prepared for it. I think that it's certainly worth giving a go.
CPU is going to suck to get through. We know that much. CPU is going to be a slog. But, well, actually, Galeswift doesn't have Sylph anymore. Galeswift got rid of his Rydia. I was about to say, with Rydia, it's pretty free. Well, I mean, it's still pretty doable. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it certainly won't feel good going through. And I think you try the Wyvern first, just for the sake of something that you can take out. But even then, it's still, somewhere in the neighborhood of 26,000 health. It's still quite a bit here. I know that in the vanilla game, these spots weren't meant to be trifled with, so they definitely packed on the hit points. So it looks like we'll kind of see where Galeswift takes things.
I will say that Galeswift does have float on Rosa. If he chooses to do the try and reflect float strats on that CPU, it will be successful. Eventually, once you win the coin flip. But gonna take this Wyvern first. Another thing worth noting is I believe Wyvern counters summons with Mega Nuke as well. So that'll be another advantage that Simbu has. You pop a Star Veil on, you get that Rydia up, you have her cast a summon, and you just keep bouncing back those Mega Nukes, and you get through it eventually.
Indeed. It looked like Galeswift was kind of in a tough spot with having to kind of play life potion roulette and yet still kind of get some damage out somehow. So he's taking the reset, recalibrate and kind of come back at it again.
Definitely going to turn that battle speed down to 4 as well. So not quite Wyvern standard time, sort of, I guess, Wyvern Mountain standard time. What would that be? It's like Mirasame Altar standard time at this point in time. But yeah, not going to be too much of a problem as long as we just get through it. That wall cast does have a cast time. I'm not sure if that's going to go off in time. It will. Having 2 live through this might be enough.
Yeah, with the kind of the agility difference, I'm not sure exactly what Palom's agility is like at this point, but I don't know if the agility is set up quite perfectly for it, but should be fairly close. It might require us drop down to battle speed 6 to be able to kind of get 2 walls up to kind of get a head start into the kind of the next portion of it.
Definitely, we're going to see he is just checking that Palom's agility, trying to do the quick calculation almost certainly in his head of, all right, what is this Palom actually at in terms of speed? What is his relative agility? Are we going to get the Starveil off or not? Here's round 2. We'll see how it goes. Well, round 3 technically, but round 2 of this particular setup.
Looks like all 3 veils have gone up, so a lot better of a spot this go around. Would be from here. It's just a matter of pushing through the remainder of the damage.
Definitely, I would be tempted to just leave that Porum down. I think he might be trying to either get her some levels, possibly for going through that CPU, or might be saying, you know what, I want 1 extra target for the possible reflected nukes that are going to be coming my way. And yeah, I think he'll be through it pretty easily this time. Just needs to do the rest of that damage now.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad from here, agreed. It looks like Simbu is making some pretty solid progress on the grind. Still has a decent amount of sirens left to go through, but should be through it overall relatively quickly.
Definitely, although we are having a little bit of a slow dragon grind here, not quite able to take them down in 1 hit. A little bit of a punch there. Might have been a miscast, but still going to be through it there. I wonder how far he's going to go right now, because I got to think he's probably not going to go all the way to nuke levels. Might just be calling it a day here soon. But on the other hand, maybe thinking, you know what? I've still got a lot of road left to travel. I might as well just get all the way now. I'll make it up once I get that party really rolling.
Yeah, I mean, with that amount of sirens, or even if you end up close, you'll get nuke eventually based off the checks that you still have to do. So overall, should still be in a pretty good spot.
Definitely. Meanwhile, Galeswift going to be down to 2 party members at this point in time. That Yang does live through the counter nuke. Palom's got another Quake queued up. That is the Wyvern down. We'll see if this is finally going to be a key item for our runners here, or if this is going to be another like Dragoon Shield or something like that.
Very nicely done on Galeswift's side, and there's a potential progression.
Earth Crystal's a good find. I think if you're Galeswift, you still take that CPU fight first, but you're chasing that Earth Crystal right after if you're not already. Nope. Galeswift is going to go for it. Say, you know what? I'm fine fading the CPU. I've finally got a way to go that's not a CPU fight at Leviathan. I'm taking it.
I don't blame him at all. That fight is slow, and I feel like it's pretty close in time as to getting through that CPU fight versus doing the entirety of Zot.
Definitely. I think the big question then becomes, Simbu is going to have levels, a lot of levels when he gets through this grind here. Simbu can take that CPU a lot easier. Will he take it? Will he not? But most importantly, what will we find as we play one of our favorite mini games here?
Raise that treasury!
Well, there's a Stardust Rod and a Ninja Shirt. Not much else that's really great here.
Yeah, some decent money. The potential for an edge, although, I mean, Galeswift hasn't taken really much of a grind at all, so there is the possibility that he could pick up an edge and have some decent equipment with a mute knife and a Mura sword.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, we're about to get 2 character checks. We've seen a lot of dupes already. I believe there's, 3 dupes a seed in this particular flag set, and we've already seen 2 of them. We know there's a dupe Rydia in the bed, and we know that there was a dupe Palom in the Baron Castle check, I think it was. There's a pretty good chance that you'll find an edge here. It's not amazing, but it is decent.
Indeed, we don't have that many character checks left overall, so there's absolutely a chance here, or even a chance that this leads to yet another character check where that could be edge. We are still hunting down that darkness crystal.
Yeah, I mean, that darkness crystal holds so much possibility right now. It really is the one piece that we need to find here. And I mean, obviously there are 2 other key items, 4 other key items that we still need, but that is the big thing that will change where the seed goes. If it's up here, Galeswift is in a really good spot. If it's not, he might be feeling a bit nervous at having chased this.
Agreed. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking to leave one check behind in Feymarch, but with CPU being as slow as it is, I certainly agree with the play and think it's a solid choice.
Definitely, but we're about to see the first of the 2 bosses that Galeswift is going to go through here at this Maggot Sister spot. Meanwhile, Simbu has 5 sirens left. Yang has 4,477 HP and is going to keep going. So Galeswift better hope he finds that darkness crystal soon, because Simbu is not going to have any problem with anything else for the rest of the seed in all likelihood.
Indeed, grind early, grind often, get some levels, and just make the seed that much easier. Sure, it's a decent time investment up front, but you will make that time up as the seed goes further.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where when you don't have guaranteed high experience locations later on down the line, you might as well go all the way right now, and you might as well sink that time investment, because in this case, Simbu is gambling that this seed is going to go late and he'll make up all that time. That seems a pretty safe gamble to me. I mean, we haven't seen anything at all here.
Indeed, yeah. Without kind of the standard kind of berserker style party where you can throw up blinks, block us your way through things, and just get through at slightly lower levels. Taking the mage party all the way up and just getting through the checks. It seems to be kind of a popular play too, in watching a lot of other races through the brackets overall. So. Interesting to see. Kind of, it looks like Simbu might be going for that Ogo.
Definitely, I really like this play. Go up for that Ogo Pogo, what your opponent probably hasn't done if they're going to do anything and not do a grind. I like it a lot, but Galeswift has hit that edge that he basically just found a starter kit for in that Earth Crystal spot. Do you get rid of the Yang for that edge at that point in time? Also, shout outs to Zoe in chat, who has successfully guessed what this Tower of Zot will be.
He absolutely nailed it. And I can definitely see the play. Like, it's more of the traditional berserker party, but you have the equipment for it, which is one of the harder things to do for Edge in this flag set, just because of how expensive the gear is and with Cell Quarter on. So it seems like, I don't know if we'll see that much of a true grind per se on Galeswift's side, but he seems to be pretty well equipped, figuratively and literally, to kind of push forward and just kind of take the experience as it comes in.
Definitely Galeswift finding the last remaining sparkle up here, finding Plague, but very interestingly for the party setup, not only got rid of the not only took the edge, but took the tele, getting rid of both twins. Now rocking that party of Rosa plus Edge plus Yong. He wants to go Berserker for the rest of the seed.
It's a solid play. I mean, Tele brings so much utility to the table, with being able to cast the weaks and being able to cure up in a pinch, throw out blanks, throw out berserks.
Definitely, I think it's also kind of one of those little bits of counterplay in some ways against the mage party that Simbu has done. Obviously, neither of our runners know what the other runner is doing, but Galeswift doesn't need that level grind anywhere near as much as Simbu did at this point in time. He could reasonably end up in a situation where he skips most, if not all, of that level grinding that Simbu did, just because we still haven't seen anything. There's a white spear from Ogopogo, by the way. And that could actually make him up time over Simbu, who spent a long time on that grind. And while it's paying off, not directly, still got a lot to go.
Indeed, and we'll see kind of what this Zot play holds.
Definitely. There's the Darkness Crystal. Galeswift has nailed the guesses here. It is behind the Wyvern. He can go to the moon, not have to deal with that CPU. Simbu looking for an anchor to head back underground at this point in time. This is going to be interesting.
Indeed. I don't hate the play, at least for this play with Galeswift checking out what's at Ogo, just for the sake of, you're already here. You might as well at least peek and see what it is. Berserker Party is going to be a lot better able to handle Ogo. Simbu made decent work out of it with reflex strats, but it's just kind of more of a push and go kind of. You just throw up your berserks, get some heals out, and just watch Ogo kind of melt.
Definitely. Obviously, he doesn't know that it's a white spear, so hey, if you want that cane from that package at any point in time, which you definitely don't want an hour and a half in, we're now up to 3 different pieces of equipment for him. But on the whole, probably going to head to the moon after this and check at very least cave value, if not do more of a dive. Might even consider doing D-Machine grind, but I don't think it's going to happen at this point in time. We'll see.
Indeed. It looks like Simbu is making his way down. We'll see. Maybe he's going after the Wyvern as well.
I think one other thing that's important to point out at this point in time is right now we have 2 checks on the table that we don't know about. We have the CPU, and, well, I guess more than 2 checks, but hear me out on this one. We have the Wyvern, or the CPU at Leviathan, and we have Cave Bahamut. That's 2. 3 of the key items that we still need to finish these objectives are terminal key items. That Lunar Subterrane is required. None of the other key items that we have left on the table fork into more than 1. We've already seen Pan, we've already seen Baron Key. We know at this point in time that our runners are going to have to dive the moon.
Very true, and it's just a matter of exactly what value the moon holds, and to kind of what order you take things. With Cave Bahamut being an objective that likely will be the first spot, but then when you get to the LST, do you start at the top and work your way down? Do you dive straight for the ribbon room? Who knows at this point?
Oh, here's the big question is, does Simbu take the CPU? And it looks like he's going to save and he's going to... I think you take the full moon dive because I think you want to clear out the moon and never go back. You have the pass in hand, you need 3 things, unless you find, exactly in Simbu's case, Pink Tail and Legend Sword, then you kind of want to go, because then you're just a Twin Heart and an Adamant away, and if you find that Twin Heart, you go for it. But I think, on the whole, probably you take that bottom of the moon play instead, because you need a lot of stuff to get through this. We still need 4 things to get through this seed.
Very, very true. Very good points. We'll see how Simbu looks to kind of tackle this CPU. Might be going for the float strats that you were talking about earlier. Actually, my apologies. There are no float strats, but looking to do some reflects, potentially reflect nukes, to maybe get lucky and try to dodge one of the orbs.
It looks like Simbu is going to just say, I'm fine with globes. Let's go. Because that is a Leviathan cast on that Rydia, and a Leviathan cast into this says, I think I can blast this down before it becomes a problem. I think Palom might be casting Meteor as well. This might knock down the CPU before it becomes a problem, and if not, you can revive from those 2 globes. It should be fine.
Very true. Get some the nice swag Meteor for 10k. Pushing out some pretty solid damage overall.
Definitely. Here comes the reflected nuke on Rydia. That is going to be another 9,000. Not quite enough to knock the CPU over. That is enough. Simbu through very convincingly. We'll see what this is.
Just powered right through it. Very well done. Ooh, that's spicy. That could be a major kind of telling point for the race, with kind of a piece of progression that's a potential progression that's left kind of behind.
I think you got to chase. I think you have to go for it at this point. Galeswift is looking like he's going to pick up some more sirens from that Cave Evelyn shop, which tells me he's going to do a grind once he hits the moon. But you gotta chase this tower key if you're gonna bother with that CPU fight. So we'll see what this ends up giving. If this ends up being exactly like, well, if this ends up being anything that's not a Sand Ruby or a Magma Key or another dud, this is really hugely in Simbu's favor right now, because Galeswift is almost certainly gonna last location that CPU.
Absolutely. I think at this point it feels like Galeswift is getting set up to just dive the moon, knock everything out there, and we'll see kind of what bears from this. The super cannon check isn't too long overall, and we should know pretty quickly.
Do you think the horse operates one of the super cannon consoles as well, like next to Odin, or do you think he just sits on the horse like his office equivalent of one of those wheelie chairs?
I think he probably just bounces from station to station. I imagine, I don't know exactly how big that super cannon room is, but you get enough of a head start, you can kind of do some laps and kind of hit each of the 3 consoles.
Definitely. Simbu is going to need to walk back down before we see what this ends up being. Galeswift on the moon now, heading to this Hummingway shop. I don't really know much of what we could find at this Hummingway shop. It's going to be particularly exciting outside of maybe coffins.
I think coffins were mainly it, and there they are.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Indeed. Notably, exits are there, which will be helpful for Simbu, because he did ditch I don't know exactly how many levels he picked up on the Porum that was an anchor from that CPU fight. But that could be helpful as well to kind of dip in and out. We'll see now kind of what we get from this tower key check.
Yeah, that's going to be really important. Galeswift, I believe, also about to give us a peek at the boss here in Cave Bahamut, which could be equally important. What are we going to have to deal with? These are the big questions, and Simbu is going to find a Magma Key.
Oof. Kind of a tough break, but you do have to chase it. I mean, you made a play to commit to it. You have to commit to your plays. So certainly worth checking, especially being right there and it being a very fast trek.
Definitely. And speaking of things that are fast treks, Galeswift, finding a Knotso at Cave Value, has decided, I'll come back later. Thank you for letting me know that's here. And it's just going to go and check the moon character, possibly dive a bit further now. Either way, the ball is a little bit in Galeswift's court at the moment. we know that CPU is not required now.
Very true. It's something that particular fade is, as we know, won't necessarily punish him. So it looks now like Simbu's kind of catching up on the Tower of Zot play.
Yeah, I think the big question is, how long does it take Simbu to get through all these checks? Simbu has power overwhelming in some ways right now. There's still a couple things that could possibly throw a wrench in his plans, but for the most part, shouldn't have too much of a problem with anything the seed throws at him from here on out. Galeswift not quite there. Galeswift is going to need to do a little bit of a grind. He's picked up the sirens for it. Still going to need to do a little bit more preparation. How much time does Simbu make up from where he's prepared already?
Very true. We know that the boss fights will take a good deal less time. Although Galeswift did make kind of short work out of it. The first boss here has roughly around 9,000 health, so it should be done within 2 nukes, and then the second spot should be finished within 1, maybe 1 plus a virus cast. So overall, you should be able to make up a little bit of time there, just solely based off of power.
Definitely, it looks like Galeswift now setting up for his grind, so he will be in there for a little bit of time. Simbu in this Asura fight shouldn't have too much of a problem. Now seems like a great time to give another quick shout out to both of our runners. Make sure you give both of them a follow. They are putting on a wonderful show today in a really linear seed in a way, and that just shows how fast they're going right now.
Indeed. Unfortunately, it looks like the mute didn't get out right away, so Edge did unfortunately bite it temporarily, but kind of recovering. Warlocks, thankfully, they go through a few rounds of spells before they start punching, so it should be fairly good to get back on track from here. Plus, the mute knife pickup makes these Warlocks just fairly easy.
Definitely. I mean, I don't think that this grind is going to take that long on the whole, no matter what, because I don't think Galeswift is going to grind that far. Probably just enough to get Edge a few levels, get him swinging a bit harder, get him a bit of health to sort of back up everything else, and then we'll go, because Galeswift does not really have a party that needs those levels massively. He just needs enough to get by, because he'll get enough to get through the Z fight from the remaining spots. So that is the big question. How many sirens do you pop if you're in that situation?
I could see maybe popping one more, get another round of experience, 1, maybe 2, but it's still, you're at 9 key items. There's the feasible play of going down to check the White Spear altar first, which doesn't offer very much experience, but that could be the 10th key item that then doubles the rest of the experience from this point forward.
Definitely, and one of the big breakpoints that we were probably looking for on Galeswift's side was that Cure 4 on Rosa, which she has passed at this point in time. Is going to live just fine through here to cast this mute onto these Warlocks, so this should be just fine, going a little bit smoother than the last run through. And yeah, I mean, you just don't need that much. Simbu about to get that Darkness Crystal, though, be hot on his heels. I'm kind of thinking our runners are going to be about neck and neck when they start going here.
Indeed, yeah. With Simbu's grind being done, at this point, Simbu doesn't have any checks left on the Earth, and is at this point, will be interesting to see if he takes on that Kenatsu right away, or if he just does kind of something similar. I'm more in Simbu's shoes, with him already having nukes. Feels likely he'll dive straight away for the objective. He can push out enough damage to kind of lessen the impact of the potential waves. So there's an advantage there in Simbu's court, but you still will have to at some point dive into the LST for some of the other pieces you don't have.
Definitely, and another thing worth noting, on Simbu's side, he has a Reflect Strat party set up for his Aromas, which is just a faster fight. than getting through it with the Yong and edge that Galeswift has at this point in time. So Galeswift needs to not just have a lead, but kind of maintain a bit of a lead from here to sort of secure the win without a possible misstep on Simbu's side. Galeswift is through with the grind at this point in time and is heading further down into the moon. I think, yeah, you're probably right. Take that White Spear altar first. Let's see what he does as he's about to be down there.
Indeed, there's still a fair amount of, or at least a few nasty bosses on the table. But there are also a couple easier ones. We still haven't seen our Kaipo guards. We still haven't seen Bahamut at this point, which is something that you're kind of decently happy to see with this kind of party. Just overall, both fairly straightforward fights. So very intriguing to see kind of where we land.
Definitely, and at this point in time, you're really hoping that White Spear is a key item so you can pick up a few extra levels along the way, get Yong a bit more damage. Yong's skills very, very heavily off of levels to begin with, so just anything from there. And hey, Simbu, like you said, is heading straight for this K-Not, so let's see which one of these plays is going to pay off first. We know that this K-Not is required regardless.
Indeed, and the Karate Band, not too awful of a fight here. Thankfully, it should be pretty well straightforward for him. Just get Berserks up, get Blinks up, and should be through relatively quickly. Meanwhile, Simbu's launched a couple of nukes, is getting power punches set up, and is firing on all cylinders, doing every bit of damage you can to lessen that wave damage.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think this is going to pose too much of a problem either way. 9,000 nukes, pretty good. K-Natsu is already in his shell. We're fine.
Oh yeah,
we're fine.
Oh yeah. Normally a very intimidating fight, but was able to just blast through it with the grind paying off 100%.
Definitely. In some ways, Galeswift is having a little bit more problems with this karate. That is a pink tail from K-Not, so here's the big question. Do you go down and turn that in before clearing the subterrane if you're Simbu? I'm kind of tempted to say, might not be worth it right away.
You still have to come back to the earth, regardless. So I think at this point, based off the power that Simbu has, that I think it's worth it just to continue on with the checks and worry about the objective when you have to go back to Earth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's going to be required to do it regardless. The question is, who does he put that on? Hey, there's a vanilla White Spear. Who could have guessed?
This is it's a very very well rolled, Harumph. Very well rolled.
I don't have words to describe how this seed is going at this point in time. I think if you're one of the runners and you have words to describe this seed, you probably can't say them on air at this point.
Almost certainly not. It'll be great to get the runners' takes on the seed kind of once things are kind of wrapped up. Once we get some. Once we finally finish this gem of the seed.
Definitely. One little sort of side effect of that pink tail that is worth noting is if the rest of the bottom of this moon, say exactly the ribbon room and the Masamune altar, hold exactly both pieces of Forge in the Twin Heart, then Galeswift is going to be going through extra boss fights. We know that Galeswift is almost certainly going to clear out everything, but Simbu can dip out at some point, and it looks like Simbu is going to do the top down instead.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. If you're taking a little bit of a different path, at least if you have a feeling that your opponent's going to dive to the bottom of LST first, there's certainly value in taking the top down approach to to try to squeak out an advantage.
Speaking of advantage, this Kaipo guard fight that we currently have Rydia casting off-slot stone on will be a very free fight. Off-slot stone is not a full guarantee, and it will whiff in this particular case. That's why we have Palom as a backup. Let's see if round 2 goes. Yep, there it goes.
Meanwhile, this Mom Bomb is a bit of a slog here. It's not a friendly boss to find in most spots. Ooh, and that is a required key item on Simbu's side.
Every key item that Simbu finds doing top-down moon is bad for Galeswift. Very, very bad for Galeswift. We are now just the Twin Harp and the Legend Sword away from go mode. Galeswift kind of needs one of those to be at the Masamune altar to help him out here a little bit. Needs to ensure that Simbu is going to do that same full clear that he's pretty much certainly going to do now at this point in time, now that we know the Adamant Rock is up there. And yeah, that is not good for Galeswift, but is going to find the Twin Heart down here in the Ribbon Room.
Indeed, there's the piece of progression that Harumph wanted to bury, and he buried it quite well. About the second best spot that you could bury it. Something to be said for with kind of Galeswift's choice to go bottom up. Diving to the bottom of the moon, you're more or less committed to, at the very least, clearing the bottom 4 spots. You don't necessarily want to make the trip down twice. So regardless, it seems like he's going to be going to be kind of priced into making at least all 4 of the checks, kind of regardless of what comes out of them.
Almost certainly. One thing that Plumeria Knight pointed out in chat is that if we find the Legend Sword down here, there is a chance that Galeswift might be tempted to fade that Mirasame altar. There is a gauntlet at Masamune altar. Oh, that is spicy. That's something you want to consider fading.
Oh my. Yeah, well, that is we'll do that at some point between now and hopefully never.
I don't think Galeswift is fading the top of the moon anymore. I think he's fading the bottom of the moon and just hoping that no one's going to take that gauntlet instead.
Yeah, I could see CPU being handled a lot with a lot more of a priority over that gauntlet.
I don't know, it's such a weird situation too. You know, Simbu should be fine to get through that gauntlet. I mean, both of our runners should be fine to get through the gauntlet. It's just gauntlet is gauntlet, and those masks can be terrible. Keblin and Queblin here at the Crystal Solar altar is not a bad prize though. Nice free one to get through.
Indeed, there were still the kind of the last of the remaining freebies. Should be fairly quick overall. I'm not going to bother attacking, I don't think, just to kind of let it go through its script.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not. Might as well just wait, take a nice break, eventually have the They Become Conscious sign pop up at the top of the screen, and they fall over and give you your free key item. The only kind of downside of this is you kind of wish this was at Masamune, and you know, the alt gauntlet was maybe here instead if you were going to get a moon alt gauntlet, but well, better for us.
Indeed. I mean, the alt gauntlet here is, while it's also not pleasant, only has maybe one truly awful fight in Double Blue Dragons, but the rest of it is pretty well manageable, even though it does take a significant amount of time. Yeah, the alt gauntlet at Ogo is just purely something you want to try to avoid at all costs.
Well, Galeswift looking like he's gonna avoid it. Does he go back in for the mirror altar? Probably, possibly. Looking like he's gonna save. Yep. Gonna go back in and pick up that Adamant Rock there, so that's good. We'll pick up the Pink Tail almost certainly from Cave Bahamut. If Simbu takes that gauntlet, and that is the Legend Sword, then I think Simbu wins. If
Yes.
Galeswift finds the Legend Sword at that Twin Harp, I think Galeswift wins. This is real intense.
Indeed, Simbu making very short work of these checks. It's just with the value of the grind, just getting to power overwhelming and just making short work of the rest of the seed. This is certainly a testament to getting the leveling out of the way first.
Yeah, definitely. One thing brought up in chat, and might be worth to check Magnus before with a save. Unfortunately, Magnus is an objective, so you can't really save scum it because you're going to need to go back through regardless. Otherwise, I would 100% agree. You leave a save down there, run back and check it. But just in this case, it has not worked out for our runners in that way to get that, unfortunately.
While Simbu had the stone cast to get through this pretty quickly, Galeswift making good use of coffins to kind of blow through this. Now the soldiers will start attacking each other, and we'll be through this part pretty quickly.
Simbu doesn't want the gauntlet either.
Yeah, I don't think that. I absolutely see that being kind of the last remaining thing. I don't see anybody kind of taking that on willingly.
Definitely. And another thing worth noting too is Galeswift has not done CPU, and we know that CPU leads into Tower Key. And if I'm Galeswift and I just faded that gauntlet down at the bottom of the moon, I'm going to CPU first. So again, if that alt gauntlet is the Legend Sword, then Simbu is really, really in charge right now.
Indeed. Galeswift picking up the Adamant Rock, exiting out. I imagine he's probably off to head over to the Kanatsu next.
Definitely, and actually looking at it, how quickly Simbu's gotten through the subterranean, he might be in command of this seed regardless. That is the last check he has down here with that Sand Ruby. He's going to be able to just head straight back down, and Galeswift hasn't even gotten through Cave Bahamut yet.
Indeed, yeah, the grind just paying dividends multiple times over, making short work of all the fights. So yeah, now Simbu can kind of look to complete, go or turn in the pink tail, go do Cave Magnus, and kind of see, okay, does that gauntlet hold our Legend Sword?
It's certainly possible. I mean, the only real out at this point in time, I know I've been saying over and over again that the gauntlet having Legend Sword favors Simbu, but if Galeswift finds the pigtail here, and then, for some reason decides to go back down, which I don't think he will in any way, shape, or form, it's possible. You never know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know exactly who would be advantaged in having to deal with that gauntlet. Sure, there are nukes, but you're having to deal with Bahamuts that are, magic resistant, and you're having to deal with evil masks and dragons. It's not going to be pleasant on Simbu's side, whereas on Galeswift's side, you're going to want you're going to go chew through a lot of Baka Swines. Thunderclaws will be able to help out with the evil masks, if I remember correctly. So it should, at least some of those fights should be a little easier. Plus the Bahamuts Berserk can kind of blink through those. So it might be a little bit easier, but we'll see if it's even required.
Definitely, but Simbu is going to take the Chocobo, going to take the Swag Fly over from Baron up to Cave Magnus at this point in time. That will be good, because that means once he pops back onto that Chocobo, it will automatically bring him back to Baron, which he will need in order to head back underground in order to check the Legend Sword. So sort of not only good style points, but a good heads-up play there. And we are an hour and 55 minutes in, and it's time for a Twin Heart check.
We knew at some point we would get it. We just didn't know when.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, when this race started, I was kind of hoping that the Twin Heart would be, technically on Friday on the East Coast and not on Saturday, and it seems like we're just barely going to be squeaking past that at this point.
By the slimmest of margins.
So meanwhile, while Simbu making this walk down, Galeswift just going ahead and getting through this K-Not-So pretty easily with the punches, not quite as fast as Simbu did. While he's picking up that pink tail and we're in this cutscene, I want to give a quick shout out to the behind the scenes team on the restream once again, Harumph on the restream and Night Dew on the tracking. Thank you to both of them for making sure this is possible. And yeah, I think we're almost to actual music time now.
Yes, very exciting.
So that's an Octomam gone. What is the reward? That's the Legend Sword. Simbu now in Go mode just needs to turn that in.
Oh yeah, we are. Well, it shouldn't be too much longer, and that Galeswift won't be too far behind on that front. But like you alluded to earlier, with Simbu's party comp and the reflect strats, Simbu's Z fight is going to be a little bit faster, so it'll be it's kind of tough from this point.
Definitely. The only sort of downside of the Reflect Party versus the Berserker Party is the Reflect Party is usually a lot squishier. And in this case, Simbu is still going to have to contend with that. There's still a chance that things go south for him at some point in time during it, but it's not entirely likely here.
Very true. Looked like Simbu had decent enough hit point totals on his mages to kind of weather an errant counter nuke, and still have enough time to get a heal up. But it will. Looks like we're going to get another rehash of the awesome harp tunes.
Absolutely. It's time for day 2 here of the Free Enterprise Music Festival. Welcome, everyone. We've just passed midnight. And yeah, please enjoy. You know, as much as I hate to have to interrupt music, unfortunately, now is one of the few times we do have to cut in here. Simbu on the way into the Aromas fight. That does lead to one quick question, Charlie, if you want to go ahead and ask it, and then we can get back to the music here.
Absolutely. Whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
Well, Simbu is now in this fight about 2:01:20 in. Galeswift still has to forge at this point, so a sizable length of seed behind at this point in time, but Simbu still needs to get through this fight, and it's not a guarantee. You know, we're only sitting on about less than 2,000 health on Rydia. You don't nerf a big bang, one comes out. If we get that far, this could still knock Simbu out. So this is a very, very, very important fight here.
Looks like we have
this one.
I do too. It's so great.
This one is made. This is Mario painted this.
It's just lovely. It's awesome. It's just very well done.
Here's the question: should this like change the background music to like the Fly Swatter minigame music, or the like creative exercise 1 music that plays when you're actually painting?
Tough call.
Anyways, I want to get real quick into the fight that Simbu is going to be doing here. If you are new to the randomizer, first of all, welcome. Glad to have you. Please drop by the Discord, join our community. But secondly, Zeromus has more health than it is actually possible to have in this game. And so the way that works is he has a counterattack scripted into his battle script that refills his health to full about halfway through. If you reflect spells onto an enemy, it does not trigger that counter script. So Simbu only needs to do the about, I think, 65,000 health to get through this fight, as opposed to doing the full 100 some odd thousand that Galeswift will have to do with the Berserk. So this will be a quite fast fight. As long as he executes it fully perfectly, he should be fine here.
Indeed, and looks like he's well on his way. He did get a silk web out, and he's bouncing right along. So he actually should be done with this fight fairly quickly. It seems like we should be able to avoid the second big bang.
Definitely. I mean, Rose is hitting with whites. We've got nukes off of both Rydia and Palom. This is looking pretty sewed up at this point in time, but Galeswift not very far behind. I want to give a quick shout out, of course, to how close both of these runners were in such a linear seed, and Simbu is through to the round of 8 with a time of 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 3 seconds.
Very well done by Simbu. Just making good work out of the seed that was presented before him, and just getting through.
Definitely, you know, it's one of those sort of signs that sometimes that grind really pays off if you do it early enough into a seed. And with that, we are joined by Simbu. First of all, GG's and congratulations on your moving into the round of 8.
Thank you.
So I want to first, ask you, what are your general thoughts on this seed that was a very long and linear grind through for you?
I'm kind of happy that I finally got a root seed. It's been a while since I've actually had a hook seed. So far my brackets have been 2 starting magma keys, a magma key at Bedward, and a magma key at Fabul. So for the most part fairly nice, but this one, I'm kind of glad that this was the one that we used for the tiebreaker match. Yeah, it was definitely rude, but that's kind of fun.
Indeed, I thought can you just walk us through a bit with kind of how setting up the party like you did for Z, like kind of the character choices and kind of what was going through your mind, kind of as you kind of swap characters around as you were going through the seed.
Yeah, I mean, I remember pretty early on I saw the hook route. Luge wasn't too big of a problem, but we also had a Yong, so I definitely made sure to check for Thunderclaws, but wasn't too worried about it. Rydia had all of the equipment for Sylph pretty early with a Tiara, Sorcerer's Robe, Rune Ring, so she was pretty set. Rosa, I mean, no one's ever going to say no to Rosa and Quake Kid. That was really good. The only thing I was a little bit concerned about is if there was something really rude at the King and Queen spot, that was not an ideal agility situation. Thankfully, Demus is as annoying as it is. It's also one of the easier fights to just kind of, okay, I got time to recover if things go a little bit wrong. So that was pretty good. And then I got underground and saw the Wyvern, and I knew that I could have cheesed it with reflected Mega Nukes using Sylph. But I needed a curse ring, so I was looking for a curse ring, spent a lot of time shopping, and started to notice that the key items were just not there. Was running out of spots, and just the character picks that were coming in were just duplicate Porums and stuff, so eventually I kind of had my hand force. I had 3 bosses remaining, an Ogopogo, a CPU, and a Wyvern. And if I had known that it was Wyvern, then I would have just picked up an Anchor and got my Earth Crystal and been on my way, but not knowing that, just set up, did all of the grinding to nuke. So I have 2 nuke casters, a white caster, and Yong. That party can handle everything except, again, no curse ring, so traded out the Porum to clear up the Fey March, but other than that, I knew that I could handle the moon since Wyvern was off the table, Golbez was off the table, most of the rude stuff was off the tables, and I had the levels, so at that point it was just, okay, kill stuff because this seed has been taking too long.
Yeah, you kind of did end up going through basically every spot that was available to you in the seed, aside from the alt gauntlet at the bottom of the moon. Were you ever tempted to go through that fight, or was that just an instant, nope, I'm perfectly okay last locationing this no matter what?
First off, since Murasame Ultra had the Adamant, and it really came down to a 50-50 shot, it's like, yeah, if someone goes through this entire seed and decides to sit through that alt gauntlet and it pays off, good for them. It also wouldn't have been that bad to take a trip down as a second time. It wouldn't have been nice, but you know, having the adamant armor for all of the rude stuff down there and just being 100% confident in the play, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a gamble that can win you a race, but it's also a gamble that will set you back 5 minutes for no good reason. Twin Harp, like, you have 2 checks up there, and Twin Harp is a higher probability, so yeah, I don't think it's the mathematical best play. Definitely a good gamble, but with how strange the rest of that seed was, with how much time everything was taking, I don't think you take a risk there. You don't know where your opponent could be, so you just focus on clearing what you can as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, I thought the way that you kind of navigated through the seed was very well done. And so going on to the round of 8, have you taken much of a look at who your opponent will be, and kind of do you have any kind of game plans on things that you might do differently, or are you just going to kind of play your own game and push forward that way?
I believe the opponent is Curios. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I don't have anything special planned. Just going to play my best game. I haven't had time to practice or really review anyone's playstyle, so just going to do my best. After that, I kind of feel like I get a pretty lucky quadrant of the bracket. I don't have Possum or Pankraz, who are definitely some of the people I'm most worried about racing in my little quadrant. So maybe someone else will knock them out, or they'll at least knock out all the other competition until I have to go through them. So yeah, we'll see. You can definitely lose any of these races, but just have to play your best game and see what happens.
Definitely. And so again, congratulations on your run today. You know, you sort of did really kind of cut your way through a very interestingly laid out seed with kind of laser precision. Do you have any final thoughts for us tonight, Simbu?
No, I think that's it. Thank you all for sitting through that 2-hour seed, and sorry for being a little late at the start of the race. I feel kind of bad for that, but if this is the type of seed we get for doing that, then maybe I should be a couple more minutes late. But yeah, thanks for everything, guys, and have a great night.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We're going to see if Galeswift wants to hop in for an interview here in just a moment as well. You know, this was a very fascinating race, and we are indeed joined by Galeswift. First of all, GG's on your run tonight. Unfortunately, not quite taking home the win, but definitely putting in a very convincing performance regardless.
Thank you. It was quite the seed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so about that, do you want to give us your overall thoughts on how that seed was for you tonight?
Yeah, I feel like the main thing, I think overall, was my strategy kind of changed halfway through the seed. I mean, obviously, it had everything that everyone wants, like every possible boss early. I think the main thing for me was I ditched the Palom instead of doing I considered doing a pretty big Siren grind, and instead went for the Berserker strategy for the Moon Dive, and was going to do a few Sirens just because I had that edge equipment. But overall, yeah, I think it was pretty fun. I'm not the best at hook routes, so I feel like I could have taken that hook route a little earlier. That being said, I did a silly wipe on the Luge, but things were fun to do. Things were fun to try in this seed for sure.
Absolutely, definitely well run overall, kind of top to bottom. I can definitely appreciate too how you kind of maintained your composure throughout some of the tougher spots, and just kind of regrouped, recalibrated, came back, and kind of proceeded forward. So with what was, at least as far as kind of once you kind of got through the Wyvern, got your Darkness Crystal, kind of walk us through kind of your thoughts, if you can walk us through kind of some of your thoughts on kind of the moon portion of the seed.
Yeah, my goal as soon as I saw the darkness was I wanted to get the LSD as fast as possible, clear as much of it as I could. Hopefully, with how many bosses were on the overworld on the Earth that were pretty rude, I was hoping that most of the bosses on the LST were doable, which they were, with the exception of the Alt Gauntlet on the Massa Altar, which I will forever fade. But I think the rest of it worked out pretty well. I knew I had some Sirens that I could do the Warlock grind on, and I was just hoping for a key item so I could get that 10 key item bonus for the ribbon room, but I guess it didn't matter because it was Mom Bomb. So it was just jokes all around, and so I was just kind of at some point just enjoying it, just powering through, and I knew that Simbu was dealing with something similar, so misery loves company, I guess.
Definitely, and sort of to draw a bit of a contrast between the way you ran the race and the way Simbu ran the race. Simbu went mages, you went berserkers. What sort of led you to your party composition that you ran through the seed with?
Mostly, I didn't want to spend the time doing the siren grind to get Palamut to nuke. I figured if I could get another, like I was looking for that cane. There's so much cane equipment, and I was just hoping like if I can get some Zerkers, I don't have to do a full grind. I can do a smaller one. I have the Rosa, and I knew if I can get one more, if I can get a good anchor, and Tello was perfect for that. I can get through the moon without having to get the nuke. My goal was basically don't get the nuke, save time by like going Zerkers if you can.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, and you did pretty well with getting through all that, kind of with the grind that you took and kind of the process with it. So unfortunately, it does mean with today that kind of the tournament run has kind of come to an end, unfortunately. But kind of, what are your feelings overall? Like, can we potentially expect to see you back for the next round of next tournament round that might be coming later this year?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was a great time overall. It was my first like big tournament. I think I did run ZZ4 a little bit, but I was still so new. I didn't really know what was going on. And this time I was actually able to practice. And I honestly, I feel like I never expected to get to this point. I was just hoping for the best, but yeah, it was a great time. All the runners have been really, really fun to race against, and I think just rewatching the VODs has been great. All the casters and the work that you guys have been doing have been really entertaining to watch. So yeah, overall, 10 out of 10. I would definitely recommend again.
Absolutely. And so with that, I think that is going to sort of bring this interview to a close. Galeswift, did you have any final thoughts for us tonight?
Not at all. Just thanks all around, and hope you guys all have a good night.
Big GG's to you, Galeswift, for sure. Very well done.
Absolutely. And so with that, that is going to lead us to the close of our stream for today. We have another full lineup of matches for you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern right here on the Free Enterprise channel. We have match 2 of Plumerian Knight versus Moonblaze Wolf. On the RPG Limit Break channel at 8 o'clock, we have match 2 of Lord Bobbury versus Rybon. And here on Free Enterprise, also at 8 o'clock Eastern, match 3 of X Pancraz versus Dusty Griff. I want to give a quick thank you, first of all, to both of our runners for a very, very well-run race. It was a great time to watch, even if it was a bit long. Thank you to Harump for rolling a fascinating seat and for the restream, as well as to Night Dew for the tracking. And thank you to my co-commentator tonight, Reckless Charlie, your first time on commentary, and I almost forgot to mention that because I couldn't tell.
Well, thank you, and for kind of being the driving force and being for tonight and being kind of the kind of helping me through a lot of this. So thank you all very much for for a good scene and a good Friday night.
Absolutely. And with that, we are just going to be signing off for today. We will hope to see you all tomorrow for all 3 of those matches, and we hope you all have a good night.